recording this intro real quick. Today is January 22nd, 2005, and thank you for being here. Here's the real intro. Well, welcome back, everyone. This is Brennan with On the Streets with Spokast. I am at my favorite convenience store in the world at Millwood Grocery and Spirits. There it is right behind me. And headed into the studio today. It's been a minute since I've released a podcast. And a shout out to my favorite mother-in-law, Bonnie, for asking, where is the podcast at? I've been listening and you haven't came out with one in over a week. And so that encouraged me to get back on here and do another one. I will say it was a crazy week. I can't actually say if that is why I did not record anything. I did record 2 podcasts that I just didn't release because I was just like, these aren't interesting at all. Like, I don't think anybody cares about what I'm talking about right now. And so I did not release them. And, you know, that's kind of why I'm doing this, is I'm trying out things. I'm testing stuff, and sometimes the content just isn't there. And, I was having a lot of trouble finding a local thing to talk about every day. And I'm thinking about switching up that segment because I'm not that I'm out of touch with Spokane. It's just like, I just don't know what's going on, and I don't want to just do something to force something. But I do have a local thing today. My Spokane thing today is Gonzaga Bulldogs just won their 20th game this season, which marks 29 years in a row that they have won at least 20 games, dating back to, what's 29 years ago? 1995. So I believe that's right. 96. I can't do math right now. I'm really 97. That's what it is. And that's just amazing. It's just I've been a Bulldog fan since about around that time when they went on their first run, and it also means they had like 2 21 seasons before their epic run, and they've just been good forever. And as a Gonzaga fan, I feel incredibly lucky to have a team that's been that good for that long. Doing a Gonzaga podcast with Adam Morrison gives me some perspective on this, obviously. And the one feedback we always get is like, when's Gonzaga going to win the big one? I feel like they're, this kind of middling team. Like, they're just always just kind of there. And like, I don't just say to people like that, like, they've won at least 20 games for the last 29 years. And what more could you want from a sports team? Winning the national championship would be amazing. And we've been to 2. And when we got to the first one, it sucked to lose that one. And then when we got to the second one, it also sucked to lose that one. But I honestly thought when we got to the first one, this might be the only time we ever get here. And then we got back a second time, and I'm like, well, maybe this is the last time we ever get here. But I think now Fuse set in. He's getting really good rosters consistently year after year. We are going to make another national championship, and it might just be this year. This could be the year. I know that we've lost Huff for at least 4 to 8 weeks. Now it's probably 3 to 8 weeks because it's been a week, but it's we're right there. And if Huff can come back and play in the NCAA tournament, like, I think we could even probably make a run without Huff. Ike's that good, and I know Ike was out last night against Pepperdine, but that was just, Pepperdine is just not a very good team. They could barely run up and down the court last night with Gonzaga, and so my point to all this is, we live in Spokane. We have this amazing college basketball team, and I would tell anyone, appreciate it, because you don't know how long this is going to last. So that is my Spokane /local thing. you got a sports team that's near and dear to your heart, and they're performing well every year. Appreciate that, and don't take it for granted, because it could all just disappear, and they could just start sucking, and we can never make it back to the NCAA tournament. And you will look back and be like, remember back in the day when we used to make the tournament every year and we used to win 20 games every year? Like, that was the day. Those are the days. So appreciate the time right now, and go Zags. It's going to be a fun end to the WWC season, and a lot more basketball to be had. And this will not be my last time talking about Gonzaga on this podcast. So, my next thing is a studio thing. I'm driving in right now. I am recording 2 podcasts this morning with the If Not Now When podcast. Talked about that, I think, a couple weeks ago. And a great podcast with Jordan Tampion and Keith Riddle. And kind of just getting ahead of schedule of getting 2 episodes done today. But then later in the afternoon, I am recording a podcast that I haven't recorded in a very long time, which is If Not Now When, with Joshua Hassong of HDG Architecture. Josh is a good friend, and we started this podcast back in, I believe we started the idea of it back in, must have been 2022, maybe it was 2023, but he had this idea it started as a podcast where we talk about the state of downtown and talk to leaders and people from Spokane that, like, how can we improve our downtown core? And we had great conversations with, like, Jess Walter, Luke Baumgarten, the former mayor David Condon. We've had a lot of just, like, great conversations about, like, how downtown could get better, and sometimes we just turn into a conversation about, poop on the sidewalks and what we need to do better to clean up our streets. And it evolved a little bit, and then Josh was like, I want to just talk about what the guests that we have on, like, what they're doing in Spokane and ways they're making our city better, and just their story in general. And today we're interviewing a relatively new Spokaneite, but has roots here when he went to college here. We're interviewing Michael Roos. He's was an offensive lineman for Eastern back in the 2000s. He went and played football in the NFL at Tennessee Titans. I believe he played his entire career there and retired from there. Just a legend offensive lineman for the Titans and for Eastern. I believe he was part of a national championship team. And so cool to interview him and be a part of that today, and just hear about his story and why he chose to move to Spokane and plant his roots here with his family. He built an amazing house up on Rockwood Boulevard that HCG designed. I have seen it from the street, and I've seen like pictures of the inside, and it's just an immaculate, like, this well-designed house, and like one of the coolest looking houses on Rockwood Boulevard. So being a part of that interview today, which is really cool. And so yeah, I'm going in right now to record 3 podcasts today. It's busy day at the studio, which is great. Hopefully we'll be getting busier and busier. And so yeah, that's my studio thing. And so the next thing is my pop culture thing. And I've been talking about movies almost every episode that we've done on the streets. But I woke up today and it's January 22nd, and they just announced the Oscar nominations today. And it's very similar to the Golden Globes in the nominations wise. Like, it's a lot of Sinners and One Battle After Another, and then some other movies mixed in there. But I think the big story is that Sinners has been nominated for. I read this and I don't have notes in front of me, so they have the most Oscar nominations ever. Sinners, directed by Ryan Coogler, starring Michael B. Jordan twice as twin brothers, and so they made history today with the most Oscar noms ever, and I believe the number was 15, and that beat out Titanic, La La Land, and another, I think, a really old movie that I don't know, which puts it in like this crazy history with all these other movies. And I'm interested to know if it will win a lot of awards, because it didn't win a lot at the Golden Globes. It did not win Best Picture. It did not win Best Actor. It didn't. I don't believe it. Yeah, it didn't win Best Actor. It didn't win Best Screenplay. I don't think it won a lot of awards at all. And I'm just kind of curious to know who of like the Academy, the people who vote for the awards. I wonder if they'll be voting, who they'll be voting for. Biggest difference between the Academy and the Golden Globes, and is that the Golden Globes is the Hollywood foreign press. So anybody who's writing for, in England, in France, like all these people who are reviewing and writing about movies, not in the United States, are voting on the Golden Globes. And so you get sometimes a lot different winners, just because they're voting, they just vote very differently. But sometimes they're very similar. So it's like sometimes a movie's just like so good that it just sweeps everything, wins Golden Globes, and it wins the Oscars, and it's all said and done. But sometimes it's like a movie will win a lot of Golden Globes, and then it might win a couple of Oscars. So I'm curious to know how it will do. And then One Battle After Another is right behind it with like 13 nominations. Movie by P.T. Anderson, Paul Thomas Anderson, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, and then Timothée Chalamet and Marty Supreme has also been nominated a handful of times too. So yeah, it's just gonna be a fun Oscars this year, and me and Abby always talk about every year, like, should we do an Oscar party? And I feel like any year that I've seen the majority of the movies, we should do an Oscar party, because it's like, because I'm invested. I'm invested in the Oscars and movies, and this year Conan O'Brien is hosting again. He's back after last year, which will be awesome to see him. He did an amazing job last year as the host of the Oscars, and I haven't talked anything about Conan O'Brien on this podcast yet, but Conan O'Brien is probably one of my favorite comedians of all time. I grew up watching him, literally. Like, I remember I had a TV in my bedroom when I was growing up, from a very, very young age, and I had cable in my room too, and I watched a lot of shows at night when I was going to sleep. I learned this at a very young age, is like, I hated school. I had probably like what we would call like Sunday scaries every day when I went to school, and so I would not go to sleep at night because I wanted to watch TV. And so what I would watch at night when I was a kid, and this also goes in pop culture thing, is I would watch a lot of Nick at Night back in the 90s. So and Nick at Night back in the I don't even know if Nick at Night exists anymore. Let me know if it does. But when I was growing up, I was watching Nick at Night. It was what was on Nickelodeon right after, like, I think it started at 9 o'clock. And it was all the old sitcoms from the 50s, 60s, and 70s mostly. And I was watching I Love Lucy and Taxi and the Dick Van Dyke Show were like the three that I really remember as a kid. I just watched sitcoms all the time on Nick at Night, and when I say I watch I Love Lucy, I mean like I love Lucy. I really do. It was like one of my favorite shows. I just cracked up to it, and then I would also then watch Conan O'Brien. Later, I remember watching Conan O'Brien back in like 1994 when like he first started, and so that would have made me 10 years old when I was watching Conan O'Brien on the Late Show, on the late night show. I forget what it's called, and I watch clips now of Conan O'Brien as an adult, and I die laughing at some of his like guests he has on, because he have guests on and he'd always do bits with them, and he was always just like a little bit awkward with the guests. You could always tell he was a little bit uncomfortable interviewing who he was interviewing, because he's just an awkward guy. He's a big, tall, gangly redhead, and when he became the host of the late night show after he took over for David Letterman, it's been well documented that when Conan took over, like, who is this guy? Because he was nobody. Like, he had wrote for a stint on The Simpsons, and he was a writer on SNL. And Lorne Michaels, who was the creator and the showrunner for SNL, kind of picked him to be the late night host. And no one thought that, Conan would last as long as he did on late night. He lasted till about, I think, 2010-ish, and then he became the host of the Tonight Show, and then immediately lost that. And because apparently his style of comedy was not for the masses. And then I got to see him come to Spokane, and he had a show on TBS, and the rest is kind of history with Conan there. But I love him. He's hosting the Oscars, so I just feel like it's going to be an epic Oscars, and that's why I want to do a party for it. And Sinners is on HBO Max, and I believe it's on Amazon Prime now too. It's on a lot of things. Watch Sinners. It is a most nominated Academy Award movie ever, and you have no excuse not to watch this movie now. I don't care if it doesn't win any awards. It still made history with the most nominations, and Sinners is one of the best movies of the last 25 years, honestly. But it might not win, and that just shows this last year's depth of quality of movies. It's just, there's so many good movies that came out in 2025. One Battle After Another is another one. Marty Supreme. I'm hoping some of these movies will come back into the theater, and then I can go experience them in the theater again, because Sinners is a great movie. I watched it in broad daylight on, I think I already mentioned this, on Labor Day this year, and it was great. But it would have been such a great movie to see in the theaters. And Michael B. Jordan's amazing in it, and the cast is just spectacular. It's just such a good movie. So go watch it and enjoy the Academy Awards this year. And thank you for being here and being a part of On the Streets of Spokast. I do want to, since it has a Spokast name, I do want to bring in more local stuff. So I need to talk about something local every week. I'm not going to just get rid of that category because I don't have anything to talk about. But I appreciate you listening. Thank you, Bonnie, for listening and encouraging me to do this episode. I feel like this was a good one, and had a good flow. That was what the other ones didn't have. They didn't have good flows. So maybe I just need to talk all about movies in my pop culture section. Just talk about what I'm watching. Basically, I'm just watching the same movies over and over again in the theater. I just went and saw Marty Supreme last week with Abby, so she could see it in the theater, which was great because it was like a sold-out crowd, and like you don't get a lot of sellout crowds a month after a movie has been out. But yeah, what else? There's nothing else because we've done the the three things. We got local thing, Spokane thing. Congrats to Gonzaga on 29-20 win seasons. That is absolutely nuts. The studio thing, if not now, win with Joshua Hassong, HDG Architecture, interviewing Michael Roos tonight. That podcast is going to come up quick and go live, so look for that. I'll let you know when it goes up. And the third thing is the Academy Award nominations. Let's celebrate art and movies and all the great things that Hollywood gives us. If we did not have Hollywood, we would not have all the TV and movies that we watch today. We would have, I don't know what we would have, honestly, if we didn't have Hollywood. If Hollywood did not exist, we'd probably have another town, like whatever other place would have took over for the movies. But it would just, I don't know if it would be the same. Hollywood is just special, and it deserves to be celebrated because art is what makes this world move. So, until next time, this has been On the Streets with Spokast. I'm your host, Brennan. Peace.